was a usual Sunday morning on September 5, 1982. For most people in the suburbs of West Des Moines, it was a family day. People were making breakfast and getting ready for Sunday church. Dads were brewing coffee, patiently waiting for their newspapers to arrive any moment now. Even though it was slightly delayed, the papers eventually arrived. Little did their neighborhood know, it's not the papers they should have been worried about. If they dug a little deeper into why it did not come on time, they would realize that a 12-year-old boy who delivers the papers disappeared in their relatively quiet town, never to be seen again. Hey, my name is Detective Maple. If you like true crime stories and unsolved mysteries, hit that subscribe button because I'm here to bring tons your way. So drape your blanket over your head and let's get spookin'. Life never took it easy on Noreen. She has been married once before and had 2 beautiful children. Her first husband got cancer, and 2 months before he died, their house got hit by a tornado, completely obliterating it. Neither of these would be her last nor worst misfortune. Years after her first husband's death, she remarries a man named John Gosch, soon to be John Gosch Sr. when John David Gosch was born. He treated Noreen's 2 other children like they were his own. The family of 5 would move into their upper-middle-class suburbs of West Des Moines in Iowa. Growing up, Johnny would be like any other child in their neighborhood. He liked playing outdoors and he really wanted a dirt bike. Instead of constantly making puppy eyes and pleading his parents to buy him one, Johnny was determined to get it himself. Likely as proud parents, Noreen and John let Johnny do what he can to earn and save up some money, including delivering newspapers. Weeks before the tragic incident, the Gosches would receive a series of wrong number calls every night. They did not think much of this at the time. The family would then attend one of the Gosches' son football games. Johnny was asked to buy snacks from a stand that is just within the line of sight of their seat. Oddly, Johnny Gosch would be seen talking to a police officer under the bench. It did not look like he was in trouble, and when he went back to his parents, he told them that he would want to be a policeman someday. John Sr. would always accompany Johnny Jr. on his newspaper delivery route. But one Saturday, Johnny said he wanted to go alone the next day. He thought he was a grown boy, and it's not like he goes to a different state every day. It's the same neighborhood. Besides, other paper boys don't bring their dads. Johnny wanted to further his independence, and John Sr. understood, so he said yes. Noreen, on the other hand, is slightly more worried. She was not comfortable letting Johnny go alone that early in the morning when it was still quite dark. Eventually, the parents agreed that John Sr. would go with Johnny. Then came 7 a.m. on September 5, 1982, and no papers arrived on many doorsteps. The neighborhood was slightly worried, but no worries, they knew the paperboy. The Gosch household's phone was constantly ringing up. Neighbors were asking for their papers. Yet, when the parents woke up, 12-year-old Johnny was not in his room nor in the house. He did not wake his dad up to go with him. He took Gretchen with him, the family dog, heading to the paper drop about 2 blocks away. John Sr. did not immediately tell Noreen that Johnny was nowhere to be found. Instead, he delivered the newspapers himself, probably trying to find his son first before stressing out the family. When Noreen finally came to know about the situation, she called the police and reported her son missing. If Johnny Gosch knew about the police's response to his disappearance, maybe he would want to be a police officer even more so he could do the job himself. Instead of calling up an Amber Alert, the police were like, "No way he's missing. Has he run away from home before? No, he probably just did now." They would initially treat him as a runaway. And so the very crucial hours of a child's disappearance were lost because apparently the police cannot do anything nor consider Johnny missing until 72 hours later. According to Noreen Gosch's book, Why Jimmy Can't Come Home, it took 45 minutes before the police arrived to take the report. Noreen had zero excuses for not searching for her son immediately. She went around town asking for information and distributing thousands of his missing person posters. There were sightings of a 2-toned blue car talking to Johnny, asking for directions. The witnesses were unable to remember the plate number, but the man in the car who seemed high on drugs was believed to have taken Gosch. In 1996, a 24-year-old convicted child molester named Paul Bonacci called up his attorney and decided to confess his involvement in an alleged pedophilia ring. According to him, they would kidnap and sell young children in black markets. He himself was once a victim who turned into an abuser, and he claimed to have assisted with the kidnapping of Johnny Gosch. He would later sign a consent form to talk to someone about it, but he did not know who. Turns out, it was Noreen Gosch. According to an interview, he would say that she could have strangled Bonacci, but she kind of felt bad because he was a victim as well. With Paul Bonacci's confession, you would think that the missing person case of Johnny Gosch would have some developments. But the police did not trust the credibility because Bonacci was diagnosed with DID, or multiple personality disorders. Because of this, the police ignored the details he provided about Johnny Gosch, even though Bonacci would never know such specific details unless he actually met the kid. He told them about the burn on his tongue, the scar on his leg, and the stammer he gets when he's upset. He also drew a map pointing to the exact area Johnny disappeared from. He even made a map and located an abandoned house where they were allegedly kept captive. 2 years after, in 1984, another paper boy in Des Moines by the name of Eugene Martin would go missing in an eerily similar manner as Johnny Gosch. The authorities would not be able to draw a connection between the cases, although Noreen said that she was allegedly informed by an informant of the child trafficking organization that these cases were related. The reward for information about the whereabouts of Johnny Gosch would later be raised to as high as $400,000. A 19-year-old by the name of Robert Herman Mayer would later be arrested by the FBI for fraud after he asked for and received $11,000 from the Gosches and allegedly asked for $100,000 more for the return of their son. According to him, Johnny was sold to a high-level drug dealer in Mexico. There was an obvious rift between the police and the victim's family, so the Gosches themselves hired their private investigators. One private investigator who reached out to them was a man named Sam, who said he has informants about the human trafficking organization. As a part of the campaign to bring Johnny Gosch back home, his pictures, alongside the pictures of the 2 other missing children, were plastered on Anderson Erickson milk cartons. A few months after his disappearance, a woman in Oklahoma would claim to have seen the boy being dragged by 2 men yelling for help. A bill allegedly containing a written note and Johnny's signature would circulate, as well as a typewritten letter claiming to be from him. None of this would have been proven to be actual pieces of evidence, but considering all the prank calls and false leads, the police did not investigate these further. 3 years after the divorce of Noreen and John Gosch Sr., Noreen would claim that a now 27-year-old Johnny would visit her apartment with an unidentified man. John would not exactly agree, and many people believe it was just Noreen's dream. In 2006, Noreen would report having found in her mail photographs of children bound and gagged, and among these was a 12-year-old Johnny. A letter would later be sent to Des Moines police saying that these photographs were sent as a sick joke to a grieving mother, and it was a case from Hillsborough in Florida. No crime nor charges were filed relating to the case. In 1982, she established the Johnny Gosch Foundation and lobbied for the Johnny Gosch Bill, which mandates the police to immediately respond to reports of missing children. This was officially made into a law in 1984. The most popular theory on how and why Johnny Gosch disappeared was that he was kidnapped by a sex trafficking organization, as said by Paul Bonacci. The details he was able to provide were too accurate to be made up. And honestly, confessing his involvement is not beneficial to his case. Maybe he's just a guy who really wants to come clean and help. But it would now be too late as the police never followed up on the leads he had provided. Some people also had mixed opinions about Noreen. In her appearances and interviews, she is very eloquent and composed. For a grieving mother, though, people who probably never lost children themselves criticized Noreen for acting too calm for someone who was missing a child. But Noreen did not care. She knew that the best way she could look for her son was to get her things together and act. For the later sightings of Johnny, though, it was speculated that Noreen has fabricated at least some of it in order to bring more attention to the case. And honestly, can you blame her for wanting more people to know more about this in hopes of bringing her son back home? There's another theory that people have that's not really as popular, but it was the narrative that the police were taking. They think that Johnny Gosch ran away from home. This did not make sense to a lot of people, because how can a 12-year-old survive out there with nothing? The last theory is even more bonkers, but hear me out. Many people see a resemblance between Jeff Gannon and Johnny Gosch. It was speculated that after being in the sex traffic ring, he grew up to be a part of a gay escort service, and then he was chosen to be a White House reporter. Regardless of all these theories, the police have not made much progress in the case. If the child trafficking organization is the culprit, it allegedly involved influential and powerful people. Rumors have it that there is a police cover-up, or at least the Des Moines police are looking the other way. If Johnny Gosch is alive today, he would be in his 50s. To this day, his parents, especially Noreen, restlessly try to reach more people and keep the story alive in hopes of finally bringing him home after almost 4 decades. Someone out there could still be holding information about Johnny Gosch's disappearance, whether it is a witness, the perpetrators, or Johnny himself. Obviously, even if his disappearance was a wake-up call to the authorities and parents, decades after Johnny, Juanita, Eugene, and hundreds of other children were taken away from their families to be allegedly sold and exploited, children continue to disappear in 2022. It is also a question worth asking if it is the people the police are supposed to protect, or if the taxpayers' resources feed the wealthy, influential people behind these human trafficking organizations. Did Johnny Gosch run away from his family? Or was he a victim of a human trafficking organization that the police covered up for? Until then, up it out!